And I think there's a recognition now that even with the suite solutions, that there's so much complexity to the procurement processes that you need best of breed in there, along with the Arebas or the Coopers or SAPs or whoever it might be. Um, so I think that's changed as well. I think there's a recognition that these point solutions can drive value in a way that you're never going to get from the suite providers. So I think so kind of an acceptance that the business case can be based on, doing something with a unique provider. And I think that maybe because SaaS is now an accepted way of doing business, you don't have to integrate lots of systems and put them behind the firewall. You can use them online, and that's perfectly acceptable for almost all organizations. I guess not everybody, but almost everybody at this point in time. Um, what else has changed? I think there's a recognition that technology now needs to be part of the solution. Whereas I think before we were trying to persuade people that technology could make a difference. It's now I must have technology. It's kind of what does that look like, and how do I get the most out of it? Um, yeah, I think those are probably the main things. Part of my feeling around the domain expertise came from the experience that we had at Abbreviate, where we found that we could sell to our customers more quickly if we said, you want to run an auction on corrugate packaging. We have a template for that. You know, we can tell you what the RFP should look like. We can tell you how we'd structure the auction. We have a view on who the suppliers are, potentially going to be. We know how to source corrugate, or we know how to source rental cars, or we know how to source downhole casing, right? Because we've done it before. We've got a template. Your team doesn't have to put it together. We can bring that in. You tweak it. We issue it. Away it goes. So being able to bring that domain expertise, I think, is still valid in terms of driving near-term value.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting point. I think, going back to what you were saying about the kind of best of breed versus suite, I think, most procurement technology commentators would put forward that point of view. The suites still absolutely have their value. And, firstly, trying to move a company away from a very established process with a very established technology that underpins everything they do in procurement. That's a big change, and it's
Yeah.
potentially a messy change, and it's seen as very high risk for organizations to fundamentally move away from that. Where I think the best of breed platforms come in is they fill in the gaps. So they're not saying replace that. They're saying you're just not effectively doing this or
Yeah.
that with that centralized technology. And you can't expect one piece of technology to do everything. There's definitely a value in, as we always talk about internally, sticking to your knitting. Do something really well, be specialist. And even, if I look at services procurement, as a specialist area, that's a very big area. But if you're fundamentally trying to conquer that statement of work life cycle, then that is quite niche. Obviously, then it has its niches on top of that, which is where you need the flexibility to deal with different categories, different types of organization, and things like that. But the the best of breed versus suite argument, I do think there is an onus of responsibility on the tech providers to be able to explain where they fit in and why. And
Yeah.
that's quite a challenging thing to do, speaking on the point of being a tech provider in the space. But I think if you can conquer that, that is a really important thing to be able to put across to prospects. But ultimately, it comes down to the problem that you're solving. You can't just go to people and say, "Hey, you need a services procurement system, or you need an X and a Y, whatever it might be." The thing that we've learned is you really need to be getting into a problem solving discussion, not selling. It's about understanding for this particular organization, very much with something like services, which can have, unique industry specific and or everyone's set up within their organization is different as to how they deal with this problem. So I think being able to actually just go through a process of understanding where the pain points are for that organization. We have like a wheel of pain with the 10 most likely pain points. whether it's lack of standardized governance and contracts, everything's a direct award, there's no competitive process, misclassification risk, rogue spend and missed savings, all these things, they're all relevant for services procurement for most organizations. But every organization is going to look at that kind of list of problems and say, well, actually, those three are the most important for me right now. And they're going to be different. And they also might be different for different stakeholders within an organization. But
Sure.
we've really learned that actually trying to understand the problem within that specific organization is the absolute that's what organizations should be doing rather than trying to sell a solution. They need to get in there, understand the problem, and then think about the solution side of it. And you need to obviously have the configurability within your solution to be able to cater for different scenarios and understand how you can fit a different problem. But when you were talking about that kind of business case, um, be interested in your view on this because one of the things that I would say we've learned is initially, from our point of view, we felt like we were solving a procurement problem. But actually, we've learned that that's not the right approach, and that's not actually what's most important. And, as much as procurement practitioners would love that to be the most important thing for their organizations, it often
It's
isn't.
not.
It's
Right.
not. And so what we've found is actually solving the problem for the business is the most important thing.
Yep.
So what problem are you solving for that business buyer and that organization? And within services, it's trying to make it easier, faster, safer for that buyer to connect with the right supplier and get that service delivered with the best possible results at the best possible value. And so that's what as a technology organization we try to address rather than just making procurement's life easier and making procurement more efficient. And people care about the business problem much, much more. And the other side of it is from a kind of like a C-suite level. I think that's a very important part of it as well, in the sense that for services, the drivers, again, are not making procurement's life easier and making procurement more automated and efficient. It's how do we get work done?
Agree.
Are we effective in the market? And I mean, I would argue that that would tie into how that organization can compete at a volatile market. From a consulting angle, um, does that kind of resonate with you?
Yes, yes, it does. It does. As I think I said, procurement is a means to an end, not an end in itself. And, procurement is successful when it's helping its partners deliver on their business objectives. That's when the CPO is going to be going to be considered to be doing a good job. And yeah, the CFO cares about cost, but most of the other business partners, as long as it's within their budget, right? They're not that worried about what the cost is. They're worried about how is it going to be working with that supplier? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be straightforward? Is it, to your point, is it going to be efficient? Right? Is it going to be safe? And cost is not really a factor unless it exceeds the budget, in which case they're going to start looking to deal with it. So making sure that your business partner is happy is really key. I work with a CPO, and he shared with me that he had objectives around cost, but he also had objectives around operational support. He said the CFO might ask him about cost, but the only time he heard from the CEO was when they had an operational problem with a supplier. Right? He'd get a call from the CEO on Sunday morning. It wasn't about how much money did you save me. It was why is this not available? Why is this not here? What is this supplier doing? You need to go get on the phone and fix it right now. Right? So making sure that your business partners, your internal customers are getting what they need, the value, the insights, the support is really what makes a CPO successful.